Okay, so why are we all here? What is radical relationship reform? It's actually been a passion of mine for probably the last 20 years, watching from all ends of the business. I was all of those, in all those jobs as multi-line rep and distributor and supplier and everything, and actually even end client, and watching how the inequity has been in the business and the expectations on everybody are large. And a lot of it, what we are finding, is that it's nothing, what people are saying are their issues are not necessarily the issues that they're dealing with. And that's the most interesting part of what we have uncovered in our research to make this happen. So the organizational chart, as I call it, is where we're really seeing the issues of how everybody's positioned in our business, so that's supplier, distributor. And when we say, we're going to say rep, I think, throughout this, which means multi-line or factory. We're not separating those. And how those are all positioned with each other, against each other, for each other, and how that is all working, and what's working well and what isn't working well. Corporate culture is a lot of what we're going to talk about, and how we can improve that in all aspects of that business, both within our own companies and with all the people we deal with. So that's an important thing. And for me, again, from a passionate point of view, how important is that to me? I actually took a job for its corporate culture and left that same job when that corporate culture changed. And I really do feel that strongly about it. I think it's a really important thing. The one thing that's really important for everybody to know is that we are not taking sides. We are speaking in voices on your behalf, but we're not taking any sides. We're not judging anybody because we've all done all the jobs. So we have a different perspective. So if it looks like we're taking sides, and it might, because we're speaking in those voices, know that we aren't doing that.
So we want to do a little bit of a framework for you, and to let you know at the end of this, all of us want to work in a thriving environment that's vibrant and fun, where everybody's respecting everybody. And the ease of that is to say, yes, I want to be respected. I want people to be honest with me. I love when people are loyal to me. And where it becomes a little difficult is when you have to turn around and say, I have to be loyal to that person. I have to be totally honest with that person in order to get what I want back. So we're going to sort of frame everything around that. So I'm hoping today that you'll leave here, that you'll be motivated to look at your own corporate culture, what it looks like, and maybe take some action on making it better for your own company, but also, of course, we're talking about all of us together, that you'll understand the issues that we face, because it's hard to create the conditions that we're going to be talking about today because of perceptions and the way that we have done things for so long. And then finally, we really hope you go with a list of ways to do this. We don't have to do that, which is great. You guys are going to do that in the discussion time, and talk about ideas and ways that we can actually act on the things that we're talking about and not leave it in this sort of fluffy manner. So how we're going to do this is we're going to take our story today is going to be the distributor, Neil is going to be our distributor today. Terry's going to represent the supplier today, and I'm going to represent the multi-line reps. And I need them to scream loud and clear, because I am darn sure there's less of them in here than there are everybody else, so I'm already feeling a little lonely. So if, when things go wrong, you can help me out. So here are the voices that we're going to speak in. And Neil's going to start as our supplier, and we're going to tell you a little bit about our backgrounds so that you can understand how we are speaking even into these situations.
Thanks, Danielle. I'm not going to bore you with a long resume. Many of you in this room I know. I'll talk about the relevant things. Reaction, Accolade Reaction, ARPG, Golf Town, now Staples. It's an interesting transition. When I left and sold Accolade in 2008, I was approached by Ash City. I was offered a job to run their U.S. sales. It was something that I truthfully had very little knowledge or experience in. And the reason I speak to this is very important, because during my 3.5 years at Ash City as Senior VP of Sales, I had the good fortune of going through 200 of the top distributors in the United States. They talked to me differently because they spoke to me about as a distributor as opposed to a typical supplier. I spoke their language. And I was able to get best practice from all of them, which is something that I feel so blessed to have been given the opportunity and exposure to. And that's what I'm going to share is best practice as a distributor throughout our discussion.
Next is me, and they gave you a little summary. So it's Parker Penn that I started, and that's where I was forced into the business. And by that I mean I was in retail, and they said if you don't take the promotional job, you're fired. So I kind of had to do that. I moved there to Pen Pal, who at the time, unbelievably, however many years ago that was, 30-ish, was the top supplier in the business. And I actually left Pen Pal to have on maternity leave. And then I got pregnant with my second child while I was on maternity leave. And then I became virtually unemployable because people thought I was a baby machine. So,
And I took her job.
and she took the job. So I had to start my own company because there was nobody else who would hire me. So I did that, Created by Craig, which is a multi-line sales rep agency for 20-ish years. Tormont Cat I was a merchandising rep for, it was actually AA Advertising at the time in Vancouver. I had the license for Tormont Cat, so while I was doing all these things, I was doing that as well. So it gave me that whole distributor experience, which I think made me a better rep. Then I moved to Debco. When I sold Created by Craig, I moved to Debco and I was their director of marketing for a couple of years, and that was a really good experience for me to understand behind the scenes, actually, is where I worked with them and on their VIP programs and all of the things we're going to talk about today, all of the appreciative stuff and the thank you and all that is where that experience comes from. And then Brand Alliance was the job that I thought I was going to retire in, and actually the job was the director of supplier relationships, and that is again where I put all of this in, all of this talk that we're going to have today. I was trying to change that culture, and it, for many reasons, it wasn't able to be continued. So I am back to CYA International, which is a motivational company that works with distributors, suppliers, reps to teach people how and why they should work in partnership. It is about proper communication, how to reach these people that you're trying to reach. And any other work that you're needing done in that way.
You skipped one.
I started out at Pen Pal. Actually, I was hired by Schaefer, and I was moving from Montreal to Toronto, and 2 weeks before they fired me, before they hired me. And so Terry was working for Pen Pal, and Paul Said, and he said if she's good enough for Schaefer, she's good enough for us, and I moved in the same time and started at Pen Pal. And the one thing I want to say about why that's relevant to today is, honestly, I had the best customer service training that anybody could ever get at Pen Pal Pen, and that was under the late Paul Said. It was spectacular, and we learned how to treat people well and how to become a team with people in order to serve them well. So he was very instrumental in that for us. Then I moved to the end user, and all I can say about that, it is great to be the king. Just leave it at that. Carl, it was only a year and a half, but it really was great. Carlson Marketing, which is now Corporate Express and Staples, I started there, and they gave me, I know it sounds good to salespeople, they gave me McDonald's Canada, and that was my one account for the entire time I was there. And the real relevant part about that is, because I care about this corporate culture focus and idea, was how it ended up with McDonald's Canada is I had an office at McDonald's Canada and was a regular part of their marketing meetings. Wouldn't we all love that? Instead of the last minute, could you get us some pretty puzzle pieces? So the point of that is how we can do that, how we can work together so that we are more a team and getting into our clients earlier. And last but not least, Ideas Express Marketing, which is what I spent the most time in, was a multi-line rep. And I mean, everybody here certainly knows who Leeds is, but when I repped it, no one did. And my husband and I brought Leeds into Canada, and it went from $0 to $2.5 million, and you know the rest of that story. And the funny thing is, when I was writing this, I realized that they're all defunct. All the
I tried not to point out the coincidence.
But no, it's actually really important, because what Neil's going to talk about now is the promotional landscape. It's rocky, it's scary, it's real, and there's a lot of factors that come into mergers and acquisitions and people going out of business and people moving around, and that's all part of this. So Neil's going to continue on with the promotional landscape. Whoops.
Let me start by saying this, that neither Terry, Danielle, or I have a dog in this fight. We are not pro-supplier, we're not pro-distributor, we're not pro-multi-line. We are pro-industry. That's what this is about. And I think as we go through this today, we'll get a pretty good handle on how dependent we are on one another. When I was asked to talk about the promotional landscape, I thought about it, and I would say I wrote it up about 15 or 20 different times. And I came up with probably 15 or 20 different ideas. And I would think if I asked 15 or 20 different people within this room, I'd get another 15 or 20 different ideas, which is good and bad. It means we're open-minded, and that's really good. I do believe that the Canadian industry there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding it right now. I don't like the term scared, I'd say uncertainty. I talk to suppliers, I work with suppliers, and they talk to me about distributors that are bypassing them, going directly offshore. I talk to distributors and they're talking about the suppliers who have these hidden back channels that they sell through. I talk to multi-lines and they feel that their commissions are being cut because of margin being shrunk, etc. So all of that, it does mean, and I think there's a lot of topics that we're going to talk about today that probably on a one-on-one basis we talk about often, but not openly. The idea, obviously, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but the idea to me speaks to openness and transparency, and really that's what we want to focus on throughout. But I'd like to talk about just one quick story to start this off, because I think it captures pretty well some of the issues. And I call it the bobblehead syndrome. And it starts when well, I'll use Kenny because he's up front. If you're dumb enough to sit in the front row, you're a target. Kenny does, and he works very hard, and he goes to see his end user, and he provides all the samples, and he does all this great work, and he gives a quote and goes through all kinds of hard work. And when it comes down to the time and the buyer says, yep, Ken, we're going to buy it. However, I can't pay you what you quoted. And we've all been there, and it's a sickening feeling, and you just look at it, it's like, really? Where are we going with this? Well, the reality is, and the buyer usually can see it and says, well, if you don't want it, there's 15 other people that are happy to take my business. So inevitably, Kenny, not to his fault, here we go, it starts. And he agrees to it, and he feels sick about it because it's not fair. But he gets back to his office, and then subsequently, he reaches out to the supplier, and he calls the supplier, and he says, you know, whoever, I saved the deal. We got the deal. However, I had to drop my pants in order to get it, and I need you to help me. The supplier, of course, gets that weak neck part going again and feels that they have no options because I got to take it, because if not, somebody else will do it to me. They agree. Well, that's chapter 2. So the third chapter is one that most people really don't realize goes on, and it's really, I say sad, but it's a sad reality. The next call usually goes to the rep, whether it's multi-line or house rep, that says, unfortunately, and it's written. For those of you who don't know this, it's written in most contracts now. If you're a multi-line, if the margins drop below a certain level, your commissions are cut. I can tell you definitively at some companies I've worked with, it's as much as 50%. You drop that low. So now the multi-line's done all the hard work, and he or she subsequently is told that they just got their work cut in half because the margin dropped. Not their fault, not really fair either as far as I'm concerned. It's not done yet. The story keeps going. 3 weeks later, I'm not going to pick on you, Kenny, the distributor hasn't seen that multi-line for a while, doesn't understand why, calls the supplier, says to the supplier, well, I haven't seen so-and-so for months or weeks, whatever it may be. I tell you what, why don't you just give me an extra 5 or 7% and keep your multi-line? It happens, and for anyone in this room that doesn't think it happens daily. And it's very sad to me, and it's very sad because what this story speaks to is how a decision that was made, and again, we're having fun at Kenny's expense, but how a decision that was made is cause and effect, and how much we depend on one another to get through this. We really do. We need all of the 3 channels, and I think that the lack of respect that goes from the top down has got to be corrected. So we're excited to talk about the topics today. We're going to bounce around. Terry's promised not to make me cry, she said, but she's coming after us. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope that story makes a little bit of sense to you, just because it does happen. And for those who are unaware of it, think about it, please.
So when Neil was talking about, you know, from the top to the bottom, what is the top to the bottom? Who is serving whom? That's the question. And if you ask different players in the industry, they're going to have a different answer. So from our perspective, and again, our perspective, you have to understand, is from surveying many people in the industry with a ton of interesting questions, and our discussions and our knowledge. The king at the top of the totem pole is the distributor. And underneath that is the supplier and the multi-line reps at the bottom.
Ow.
Now, ouch. Yeah. And he's going to bite his tongue because he gets to talk it later because he doesn't agree with me.
I was told not to jump.
Right. But that is the perception. The distributor is the one that makes the rules and sets things up and tells everybody where they have to be. The supplier then runs and does what they're supposed to do, which is get the inventory and all the things we're going to talk about. and then the multi-line rep, these stories, when I was a multi-line rep, certainly nobody was ever saying, keep your rep and give me the money that I'm aware of. So I mean, that's a whole new level we're going to. So this is how it appears to be to most people in the business. Maybe not some of the distributors, and maybe not everybody. We're not speaking for everybody, but this is what we're saying is the perception, the kind of the basic perception. And I'm saying, is that right? Is that how this should be? Because who are we serving? Who is the client? Is the distributor the client of the supplier? They think they are. And what about a multi-line? Who's their client? Is it the distributor, or is it the guy who pays them, a supplier? Although the distributor say, I'm going to say it for him, pay that person, but nevertheless, it's the supplier who's paying that bill. So who is working for whom? This is how it looks now, but what if?
So it doesn't matter if you agree with this lineup. I personally do, speaking from the rep at the bottom, feeling the pain. But it doesn't matter, because whatever you believe those three people are in line, you have a perception of how, therefore, it should go after that. Who's above whom, who's serving whom, and who sort of rules the roost in the industry. So we have this accepted perception, so we should stop pretending that we do, and stop pretending that it doesn't create how we treat each other. What we're suggesting today there we go, is that we push it over, have a whole new perspective. We're just asking you for today, for now, and in these groups, and when you go back home, to have a different perception of the way maybe that things can be. And as Neil said, we are completely interdependent, all three partnerships. So we're saying today, we work together. We're a team. We're interdependent on each other on equal footing, foundational to serving, okay, Neil, just bite your tongue one more time, for the client, the king. The fact is, we are all serving the client. There are ways to view that are unhealthy, and there are ways to view that that are healthy. But I think in our companies, to over-communicate that we are a team, and how distributor companies, how they teach their people to treat suppliers and reps, and how suppliers teach their people to treat their reps and their distributors, is really important. What we can't allow is for that crown to get too big on this guy's head, and then the whole bobblehead thing happens. So even though we're treating each other well, if we don't understand the client is king, we're serving this guy, but if we're going to allow that crown to get too big, exactly what Neil says happens, and we're all back to the whole hierarchy problem again. So we're going to set the stage for you for growth and satisfaction in the industry, working in your own companies and working with each other. And we've chosen 5 words that actually came from you guys. Loyalty, honesty, respect, fairness, and accountability. What I'm going to say right now is those things don't just happen. So whatever's going on in your companies or between companies, it didn't just happen. You have to be intentional about this to make it work, and to make it work in a healthy manner. So, loyalty, honesty, respect, you may go, oh brother, I just want to make money, I want to get a sale, and I understand that. But in order to do that well as an industry, we do need to focus on these things. They may seem soft and wishy-washy and even unattainable, but I'm going to turn for 1 second to Google. $600 billion company, a little more than we are, so I just was paying attention to what they did, is they turned on themselves. Google turned on themselves and said, sorry, me and Trump, we need to drink. Sorry, I don't know what just happened. Google turned on themselves and said, okay, we've spent 15 solid years hiring on STEM, on the science, technology, engineering and mathematics. They've absolutely focused all of their hiring on those things and poured millions and millions of dollars into doing so. So what they did was they checked their own company and their own management to figure out who were the best managers, who was really making their company, taking it from here to the 600 and something billion that they are now. I'm going to read it because I won't remember it. These are the things that they found out after spending millions of dollars on STEM. Coaching, communicating and listening to other people in their own companies, possessing insights into others, empathy. It's actually a business term now at Google, empathy. Critical thinking and problem-solving skills together, and I love this one, making connections across complex ideas and lines of communication. So it's matrix thinking, working together to get things done. That is how they got where they got, even though they thought they were doing it by brilliant scientific minds. So we thought that we would take that as an example also to say, let's really unpack this and look at this. So let's talk about what we learned from you guys, and we're going to put it in this framework.
Okay, so the guy in the middle is basically what we're saying we did. We listened. We asked, we listened. So we surveyed over 30 companies and asked extremely specific questions that, truthfully, the respondents would not have answered if they weren't given 100% anonymity. There's no question, because you can't, because of all this hierarchy, you can't say this to this guy, and you can't say, but we can. Because we have all the information, you don't know who said it, and we're putting it back out there, which has been a lot of fun, by the way, just saying. So what we did, so we surveyed people, we took all the results, we've calculated it, we've said we've matched it all back up, and on top of that, we have 92 years of combined experience. Oh. Yeah. So I think we've talked to a few people along the way. So we're talking thousands of people of input and the surveys, and so we're coming back to you with maybe not how you thought it was, but apparently how it is. So here's what we're going to do. I'm the supplier, so I'm now going to talk to Neil and tell him what it is, based on those surveys and the information, what I want from him. And if he has a rebuttal, not that he would, but if he did, he might throw it out there. So we're going to give that a shot. So I'm going to say, Neil, what I'm looking for in a relationship with you is true partnership and loyalty. When, we really need... Yeah, I know he is. I'm not finished yet, though, because loyalty is a two-way street. So I know I want it from you, you want it from me. Yeah. But I'm saying when you ask me for the moon, which, you kind of do, at least give me the business.
Well, and I would say that it's the P word, as I refer to it often, that word partnership. Every time somebody comes in your office, they want to be your partner. Every distributor's heard it. And then the guy goes next door and he offers the same partnership to your competitor, and that is the biggest complaint we found through the survey is that the difference between what happens on this street and that street is virtually non-existent. And that's a problem. So I'm very loyal, and I've proven that over the years as a distributor, but I would suggest that loyalty goes both ways. So when push comes to shove, what's the defining moment that says, okay, now we're all quoting on the same piece of business? How do you handle that?
That's right. How do you handle that? And that's a question we're going to deal with later, because there's a lot of different answers to that question. Just to finish that one point, though, I have to tell you guys, I went to an event, it's probably 20 years ago, so it could be old, but these still exist today. And the distributor who was running the event actually said to all of us in the room, this is also known as bend over supplier night. Oh my God. So you can imagine, you've driven to a meeting to understand, and the person at the front of the room has said this to you. So it does happen. It's not totally in our heads. No, it wasn't Ken. I'm looking at him too. It's not him.
Because at least he's in shock.
The good news is the person is not in business with us anymore. So that I can say.
And that's likely why he is out
That's
of
right.
business.
All right, so understanding. This is what I'd like you to understand, Neil, that free is not free. It's not really free. It's only free to you. And it appears to me that no matter what we do, it's never free enough. That's what it feels like. There's no free lunch. Oh, that's a whole other topic, lunch and learns. There's no free lunch. There's no free. Somebody's paying that bill. And I think as a supplier, I need you to understand that when you're getting that long list of freebies, what that actually means.
Well, you know what, I can speak to that, and again, I know I'm not supposed to change rules, but you just poked me. So just quickly, because
we knew
because having worked as a supplier, I know what the costs are. I know what it costs to do samples. I know what the costs associated with it. So personally, I appreciate that. Yeah. From my perspective, I'm a firm believer it should be a percentage, and it should be built into the cost that says if I do X volume, I get this in samples. This is my position, and simply because, and somebody would say, well, the bigger guys get all the perks. Well, you know what? Their expenses are higher. Their cost of doing business are higher, and there's a reason for that. So I don't think anybody in here thinks it's free. I would suggest that perhaps sometimes we don't appreciate as much as we could.
Okay.
I'm not going to suggest that this bend over mentality is part of the package.
All right, and I actually agree that I think it's possible that people don't actually think about it. But I think when you're on the supplier side and even on the rep side, you hear that request 100 times a day. I need that free. I need free shipping. I need. So if you as the distributor tell me that you understand that and can connect to that, I'm hoping that that's spreading across the waters.
And I would say this, and I was at something this morning, and one of the comments was, we want more business, we want profitable business. So part of the problem lies with the supplier on that one, because if the supplier continues to give, there's a perception that there's a bucket of money that never ends. So at some stage, you got to own that. If not, I'm going to keep asking.
That's true too. That goes a little back to bobblehead. The third one is prompt payment and understanding we are not banks. And I know every distributor in this room pays in net 30 without a problem. So I'm not talking to you people, but I just want to, in case you have friends. No, you might have friends who don't. So if you could tell them, nobody specifically, but if you could tell them 30 days is what we asked for. The bottom line of this is, again, we've talked to distributors and distributor reps even worse because they're not connected to paying the bills. And they're incensed, and I use that word from my gut, incensed that we won't ship when you're 90 days overdue. Like it happens all day, every day to suppliers. They're getting a call saying, but you have to ship my order, my client needs it. And the supplier needs to say, but you have to pay your bills in 30 days. But we're not that honest with each other, right? We're not, because we all walk on eggshells, making sure that we're not upsetting the apple cart. But what we're trying to tell you is when you're not honest, and I'm not saying that you necessarily have to be from here on in, but when you're not, all of these actual conversations and thoughts are going on elsewhere. So when you're not paying your bills and being demanding, if you think that's all going to get you anywhere in the end, it's not, because you're not going to be serviced by the rep. The supplier may find that he's out of inventory, or that when you're doing your quote, there's all kinds of things that are going to happen from this. So we're saying, take a look. Take a look if you have a real problem with the finance of an order and you need to talk to somebody, that's one thing. But when a distributor consistently pays, and the reason that they're consistently paying late is they say their client doesn't pay them for 60, 90, what did you tell me, 180 days for some of the major...
Yeah, I think that there are those, and
yeah,
some of the breweries where the POs are now come out at 160, 180.
So, but the problem is, the distributor made the deal for 180 days. The supplier didn't make that deal. So how come they're saying, yeah, but I can't pay you, because that's, and again, it's all about respect, loyalty, understanding. That's all we're trying to do is point it out.
The only thing I would add to that, and I do agree that you have to be paid in a timely manner and you're not a bank, but it does start, and I was struggling, I was biting my tongue because that slide with that crown kept getting bigger, is that we need our customers, but we also need to have enough respect for each other to say enough is enough. When guys are cutting POs that are 180 days and low margins and this, that, and the other thing, if enough people say no, it stops. I can't pay any of my bills in 180 days. They cut my hydro off. They cut my gas off. I don't know where this comes from, and I really do struggle with this concept that the end user has all the cards, because that's self-destructive behavior from a distributor's perspective. We've done it to ourselves. So enough. I mean, truthfully, it's insane to me why people would line up and do that to accept it.
Right. The next one is taking advantage of our expertise, and this is not really even a rebuttal type of comment. It's just, again, with the trust loyalty issues, and this is still going on today, I mean, a supplier and a multi-line rep are so able to help on end user calls and program development and you're sitting down with your marketing calendar deciding what you're going to do because they know what product is coming and what's going to be a great price and what's the trends. I mean, a lot of these guys are doing some amazing trend work, some of the bigger suppliers, to tell you long before the distributor knows what the new colors are. So if you brought these people in, the suppliers, right, into those meetings, into those discussions, it's such a benefit, but we don't treat each other that way. So that to me is just something we'd really like to see more often. And then reasonable, fair, this is a big one for me, reasonable, fair, and realistic expectations. I actually think it's sad that we have any expectations of each other, because an expectation is really a demand that somebody's saying is an expectation. It's not. And the biggest proponent of that is a VIP program. And I've had a lot of experience doing VIP programs and programs with people as a supplier and a rep over the years, and it's painful. And I have to read this because the list is too long for me to remember. So somebody can say to you, we'll have a VIP program, we want you to be your partner, and come on in, supplier, we want to be your partner, and this is what we need from you. rebate, free freight, best price in the country, free samples, free specs, free catalogs, client show presence, co-op photography allowance, and placement fees. And oh yeah, the new one, we'd like a prebate. So you listen to this, and I remember sitting with a client one time and saying, you realize that adds up to about 22% of the sales, right? Do you know that? And she goes like this. I said, where do you think we have that? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So realistic expectations, really thinking through what's fair, asking for what you need and not what you can get. These are all very important features in a relationship. And the supplier themselves are going to react to that in an entirely different way.
You know what, and again, we've done this for a long time, and I look around and it's not that many young people, which is a little disappointing, but no, and I say that. No, because as an industry, but as an industry.
I'll just say ouch for a lot of us.
People needed to react to that.
Let me go back, because what...
Stand up if you're under 50, because that's what he's talking about.
I did not say under 50. People that have done this for a long time, and what happened, and what has happened for the longest time, and any supplier in here, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, will make the comment that there's a backdoor, there's a deal off the side. And you know what? I don't know if anybody's here from Spectre. I'm going to use that because I had a conversation with Rob Spectre, who I have nothing but respect for, and he said to me a couple years ago, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Here's the rules. You do this, you get this. This is what you earn. And so, to your point, Terry, I think a lot of the stuff you said is nuts. Absolutely crazy. But on the other hand, you're nuts to let it happen to yourself. So if I'm a supplier in this room, and I'm looking around, I don't want to look up because a couple of people in particular I know have been taken advantage of, stop it. It's a set rule. It doesn't matter who's your buddy, who's your cousin, what you did 10 years ago. I've worked at companies where we had to pull back rebates. We've had to make variance. It's that firm line in the sand that says enough is enough. Because you're right. 22%, there's not that kind of money in it. We know that, or you should know that if you got out of grade 7. But the reality is pretty simple. If you're going to continuously allow it to happen,
yep, and that's
shame on you.
Goes back to the bobblehead.
Shame on you.
Everybody is running in a bit of fear of what if, and if we don't do it, somebody else will. You do it as a distributor to your client, we do it to the distributor, and that's just the way it is. But we're saying, does it have to be this way? Can we find a way to work differently, better, more fairly, and actually more caring, if you want to even get that wishy-washy about it, that we actually care if the other person is making money and is enjoying their work and doesn't feel pressured all the time.
I think you're dreaming now.
I know he does, but this is my passion and my goal, and I don't think we have to work under the pressure that we do. So the next one is, this is what we found out suppliers want from their multi-line reps. So keeping us informed regularly about the distributor world. This, I don't know if everybody is aware, particularly suppliers, of the value of a multi-line. I was a multi-line, I was a supplier, so I'm going to do both sides of that, and you're going to pop in if you need to. They see and hear everything from everyone, and people are very honest with their multi-lines about the company they work for, meaning a distributor rep talking about the company, the good and bad of it, the supplier people, they tell them the good and bad of it. They have such valuable information about what's going on in the street, and I can tell you that 90% of this, maybe not that many, maybe 85% of the suppliers do not use that. They don't ask those reps for that kind of information. They don't bring them in on those meetings and those planning and those trending meetings and marketing meetings. And the rep can tell you almost anything you need to know if you ask the right questions.
I have no rebuttal. She said I was perfect.
Yeah, I did.
Go ahead.
Communicate our company strategy.
Oh, sorry. What? That's funny. Go ahead.
Why is that funny?
Because I repped a lot of suppliers and no one ever mentioned the word strategy. Not one time.
That's true. That's true. That the problem is that we do not train necessarily our reps to talk the way we want them to talk. And our industry is pretty famous for not training reps properly. And that's one of the biggest complaints in the business. The three of us have had meetings on this. It's nuts, but it happens. You know, they don't fly them all into wherever they are and do a full 3 days of not just product. I mean, product is product and that's great, but It's more about the relationship, what strategy they're trying to present, how they want their products marketed, particularly when you get into brands, and I'm seeing Shane there from Cutter & Buck, and I think there's a story there. This is not just, here's a shirt, and here's a nice shirt, and then, by the way, it's an expensive shirt. That's how you could, that's how it would be if you didn't really understand the value of the line and what it's all about. And if you don't have that proper training, your rep is not going to be able to do that proper training with you. So that's, to me, that is if we're not presenting that properly, we should be. We should absolutely be. And I've answered it again. I took the blame.
Keep going. This is so great. This is what I hope from all suppliers. Although I want to say one thing, that the bane of all reps' existence is when you've got your week planned out and some manager from your supplier says, I'm coming with you. It's a nightmare on all levels, let's be real. I just said no. I don't know if you can say no anymore. I just said no.
Well, I would love to know actually who's laughing out there. The reps, the sales managers, who is it?
Yeah. Actually, what I want to say to the suppliers, is if you're going to do that, it's actually a great time to talk your company strategy and not just sit there and watch your rep or tag along. It's a great time to be the person at that meeting that is talking about the strategy that you're trying to work with that particular distributor. So even though it's no fun for the rep, if you're going to make us do it, we'd love to have you take that opportunity to talk the strategy.
And focusing on relationship building with our distributors, I think that's a given, and I actually think that's not really a complaint. I think most suppliers think that's probably one of the top reasons they have reps, is to be out there talking to the people, keeping the line in front of their face, finding out their needs, finding out what's happening in the industry. So I think I'm just saying that we're not saying all the things that they're not happy with. We're talking about, we ask the questions, what makes a great rep to you, and what makes a great client to you? So you're getting kind of a cross of information. Frequent and deep exposure of our line and capabilities, carry fewer lines. This is a obviously as a supplier, I'd like my guy to carry only my line, right? And then I'd really like him to have 3, and if they didn't cross over. Well,
then I'd really like you to pay me a lot of money for doing that.
Right, so that's the problem, right? You can't make enough money, it's on straight commission, they're cutting the commission back, and you've got all this. These are the balls that everybody's juggling behind the scenes, and I just think everybody needs to understand that. Mm-hmm. So frequent and deep exposure, carry fewer lines, that's great, but crossover is so huge now in our business, you cannot have 2 lines that don't cross over. It's virtually impossible. When I was a rep, I had 6 lines, and there was 0 crossover. Now I don't believe you could do that in any job as a multi-line. So there's a problem too. But again, the problem is not carrying fewer lines or it's the supplier giving the rep the tools they need to bring their line to the top of the bag. And that's another thing we'll be talking about when we get into it a little bit. And the balancing the time well between solid and prospective accounts, this is an ongoing issue. I think everybody's going to bobblehead to this. I mean, it's an 80-20 rule. That's what people do. That's what distributors do with their clients. They focus on the top guys who are giving them the majority of the business, and multi-line reps are usually the same. But I'm going to take the blame again as a supplier. If I want a rep to do that differently, if I want this many new people to be called on per month or whatever, then I need to express that. And communication or lack thereof is a huge part of our industry problems. People don't know what's expected, and that's kind of why we're here today, to let you know what that might be.
So now we are going to talk about what you, distributors, said that you wanted from multi-line reps.
And I could read this, but I probably don't need to. But one of the points is having a comprehensive knowledge of product and capabilities. I'm going to go big trouble tonight, I guarantee you. I struggle with somebody who wants to come in and drop a catalog on my desk and consider the account serviced. If you have no value other than to drop a catalog, I'm that guy that's calling up and saying, give me the extra 5 points. So I think that the product training and some value, one of the things that I think we've lost and defaulted to price all the time as opposed to the value. I think multi-lines have a great value, I really do. Not because I'm married to one, I hope. But I truthfully do. And I think as a distributor, there's less of them doing that. And I'm not doing this because Terry and Danielle we work so closely together at a time. And you guys did a hell of a job. And that's why our sales were what they were. It's no coincidence. I always used to get accused of having my what do we call it? My posse of suppliers that I would hang out with and do all my work with. It wasn't because I like to drink beer with them or play golf with them. It's because at 4 o'clock on a Friday, they provided value, and it will always be that way. So if you're a multi-line or a house rep, and that's your goal, is and you have to develop those relationships are tied to getting to the point where you are my go-to when that phone rings at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and it's wonderful when you are because the benefits are great. Targeted ideas on my projects. That was a hard one because there are many distributors in this room who are very close to the fist or chest as it relates to sharing information. I really encourage people. When I ran Accolade, we had a list of programs. This is the date they come up. This is when I'm looking for ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And I used to laugh, and a certain rep would come up and say, "Oh, I got this great new product." And I said, "I gave this list to you. You did nothing. It's 3 months past when we picked product." So you have to be proactive. I need you to be a part of the game, not just coming in and doing your touch and go. Advocate for me when there's problems. I said this morning in something I was doing, and multi-lines are great. The great ones are great when there's a problem. The bad ones are the ones that disappear when there's a problem. And there are many. And I'm not pointing fingers, but I think we all know who they are. And you need to advocate. And it's a tough job because, Terry and I debate this all the time. Who do you work for? I think you work for me. She thinks they work for the supplier. Yeah. So at that stage of the game, you're wearing two hats. And the question is really, when a problem comes, do I fight for the company or do I fight for the customer? My expectation is you're gonna get my back, and we can.
But there goes again another question about fairness and reason. If the customer was being fair about what they were requesting in the time of trouble, it would be a lot less need for advocacy between people, right? I mean, if you asked for what you needed, not what you wanted, you wouldn't have as many times that you needed somebody to step in.
And the only other thing I'd add, and again, I don't want to beat up on anybody, from a distributor perspective, if your idea when there is a problem is to phone somebody and curse and yell and scream, you're a fool. You're a fool. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's like sending your meal back and telling the waitress she's ugly. It's not a good idea. Trust me. This is not wise. So they will support you given an opportunity, but I would really encourage the behavior because there are those yellers and screamers and suppliers, and you know who they are, and I'm not sure what they think they're going to accomplish, but it rarely gets you anywhere.
You know, Neil, I want to also say that when multi-lines are asked on your behalf to talk to their suppliers, if it is fair and equitable and you can see, both sides, but often in my experience, and I know for sure some multi-lines in this room, there are many occasions where a distributor will be, 110% at fault and want you to argue for the supplier to take it on and pay for it. Nothing is free enough. And if it's 100% the distributor's fault, we're still doing it. And if it's 50, it's just, there's that fair and equitable way of dealing, putting us all on the same level and not in a post, where we're going to be dealing with each other differently right from the get-go. And then there would be I would happily go to the supplier and try to work this out because all of us are trying to get this order and make money.
I mean, but the one thing that, and we didn't put it on here, but it's a real passion of mine. And I always tell people, when you learn my business, you learn it. So when we did the survey, it was consistent that people said, I don't want the same presentation that Genumark got. Then they go to Staples, then they go whatever. And the reality is that if you haven't taken some time, and I will tell a little story years ago, and Terry Slattery, who most of you know, a dear friend, and he used to come in, and Ash City would send us in a kit. And at the time, we had RBC and BMO, which was our two big accounts, everybody knows it, and they were blue. And he opened up the kit, he had a steamer, and he was setting up our showroom, and it was lovely, and everything was going great. And there was one blue sample in the entire kit. And I said, and Terry's a friend, so I was honest with him. I said, Terry, you do see the problem with this scenario. Like, I got no blue. Oh, he said, that's the kit. I said, okay. So I'm going to tell you, if the Trimark kit happens to have blue in it, you're going to have a problem. And Terry's a dear friend, so I can say it. He looked and he said, I'm an idiot. And he took about half the samples off my rack, went back to Ash City, swapped them all out, came back with blue, and the lights went on. the numbers went through the roof. That's not rocket science, folks. That's understanding your customer. And that's what we expect, is not to turn around and just preach, somewhere I asked the question, like, how do I get more business? Well, think about who my customers are, what my needs are, what my problems are. You're not supplying product, but you're providing solutions. So that's really important for me. So what distributors want from supplier? Quality product, selection, and inventory. Next. Obviously, and Terry hit it, it's getting harder and harder, the crossover in product, and you've got, I don't want to name names, but everybody's got a coffee mug, everyone's got this, that, and the other thing. So, I talked about it in a sales meeting I did this morning, and it's like, what is it you're selling? So don't tell me about the value of your C-handle mug because there's about 19 of them within throwing distance. Explain to me the value proposition, and I don't think there's enough time spent on, we know we're going to buy that mug, let's do it that way. Accountability in time of trouble, same scenario. Every single supplier in this room at some stage of the game has had an order go sideways. I don't care who you are, but how you deal with it. And there are those that are far better than others at it.
I want to actually add a story there if I could. Perfect example. Distributor, the supplier delivered a small order, $500 order, 1 day late. There was not an event, so it didn't miss anything, but it was inconvenient for the executive secretary, I guess, because she had to put these things in the bag after the fact. So it was kind of a pain in the butt. There was 100 of them, I guess, whatever it was. And the distributor rep went ballistic and screaming and yelling, and I wanted a free order, and this is ridiculous, blah, blah. Anyway, so the actual resolution that came out was, the question was asked, what does your client need to feel good about this? Did they need the whole order free? They have them. They went in the bed. Did they ask you for that? Well, no. Well, what did they need? Well, she said it was a bad experience, and she was embarrassed, and she had to stay late and work. And we talked about it. I said, well, what if we gave them a $100 gift card to the keg for her, and you said, have a nice dinner with your husband. Sorry you had that inconvenience. Does that work? And the distributor rep was taken aback by because she wanted it all. And she said, yeah, that probably would. And when we talked to the supplier and said, this is what we need in order to make this work, are you okay with that? They were thrilled because they knew they had made a mistake in the shipping, so it wasn't that they didn't take responsibility, but they had already talked to the rep who said they wanted it all. So that's just a small example of an easy way to make, the rep still made their money, right? She made her commission or whatever. Everybody, it's a win-win. So that's the thing to note. When you're working on problems, fairness, understanding, and I'm going to repeat it again, ask for what you need and not what you want.
And you know what, I will touch on that, and I will say from a distributor perspective, the companies that are truly having great success in this industry from a distributor's perspective are those that are working with their suppliers. Mm-hmm. The others and they can't believe that bad things are happening to them by the way they treat people, and it's no coincidence. So the next point, I don't even know, it's just like a dirty word to me. I hate it. It's that word price, and we deal with it every day, and I would just like to throw it out and talk about value. There is absolutely no coincidence whatsoever that those people that consistently default to price have no loyalty, and they go hand in hand. Right. So if you're going to give up your price every time, that buyer knows that the next time they need to push you, and somebody's always going to be cheaper in this business. It's self-destructive. So I want good pricing, but I also need to maintain it for all of us. Do what you say you're going to do. I think that goes without say. I always tell people an awards dinner without an award is a bad night. You have to provide, the vast majority of what we provide in sales and product is event driven. So suppliers in the room, letting me know in advance of a challenge is really, really important, as opposed to telling me the day before or a week before when I've got no chance to.
Well, and I think that goes back to the bobblehead a little bit, because in our industry, all those levels of the chain tend to tell people what they want to hear rather than what the truth is. So they make excuses for why it didn't ship, or that they extend the shipping date. This is where it's got to stop. We got to stop doing that. It is what it is, where everybody's working their butts off, and now with 24-hour shipping, and it's all crazy. So to me, we're just past the point of having to tell people something that isn't the truth in order to save our neck for the short term, because it is only the short term that's going to come back and bite you forever. So.
Now we're going to talk about what I want. I want to remind you, in between these sessions, though, it's not what I want. This actually came from you. We did a survey, and these are the things that came up over and over again in the answers from multi-line reps. The suppliers, listen really closely to this one. We want product training. I'm not saying they're fun meetings. I'm not saying it's a blast. We want product training in order to represent your line well, in order to be able to sell it properly to the people who will be using it for the end user. It's really important, and it's really important that we get product training before the distributors do. Because you go into a distributor and they have products that we've never even seen from a line that we carry. You know what? It doesn't make you look good. It's not so good. You can argue that.
No, there's nothing to argue there. It is a need, and it is lacking in a lot of ways, and you'll probably see that a little bit on the trade show floor.
And you know, if I can, and not to be personal, I worked a meeting this morning for a supplier, and there was 15 reps, give or take, and that was the one thing that they all asked for. They said they didn't feel comfortable with it, and I was stunned.
Fantastic.
I was stunned.
We want it. That's how we're going to do our jobs well. I mean, I'll give the Leeds example because it's a long time ago and it was great. They flew us out to Pittsburgh for 3 days. We did role playing, company strategy, every single product, why that line, why their coolers were better. It was awesome training. Not fun. I'm not saying it's fun, but it's necessary for us to represent your lines well. We want to be part of the team. I mean, again, it sounds so wishy-washy, but that is a mentality within your company, how you train your customer service reps to treat your reps on the road. Are we a necessary evil, a pain in the butt? How does it work? Are we a team working together to service the distributor? You know, I was at a Geiger show a month ago in Boston, and there were people there from Canada, so a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and I was there with a Geiger rep. And it was hysterical because one of the reps, a supplier that I used to rep, said, "Oh my gosh, it's Danielle. She would ask for spec samples and all this stuff for her distributors." Wait a minute.
Isn't that the job?
Wait a minute. This is us. I was getting business and samples in their hands for you. So right away, there was a column mentality and not a cross mentality.
And a disconnect.
And I mean, this is a month ago from somebody I rep 12 years ago. Communication on issues and problems. Look, when there's stuff going on with distributors, you need to pull your reps in. We're there. We're in their faces. We know them. We might have knowledge for that situation that could actually help out instead of keeping us out. So we want to have excellent communication from you on all issues that are going on with our territory.
And our industry is famously bad for communication. It is on all levels. And I just want to put out there for suppliers, your reps should know what's going on at all times. So it could be as simple as CCing them on every email that goes out to clients. It may be a lot of emails, they can pick through them, but if they don't, there is nothing worse. I mean, I was a rep too, so I'm jumping in and everything. There's nothing worse than somebody calling you to talk about a problem that you know nothing about. And they you know, it's already deep in, and the distributor's all mad, and you don't know anything. And you're going, okay. And they got a call. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. The rep on the road is the one who's got the front facing. So letting them know through emails, through discussions, everybody should know what's going on inside the company between customer service people, the owners, and the clients. The multi-line rep should be aware.
You'll get more business. It works better.
Yeah.
The other thing that multi-line reps are really looking for from suppliers is support materials, programs, and ideas. Because when you don't have a catalog and it's 6 months late and you don't produce anything to say about your company, and then none of your products came in, and so we want to go see our distributors, and I have a cracked something from 2 years ago in my bag because it's not there, and then you're mad it didn't happen. So the idea of providing your reps with the tools they need to get out there and get into suppliers is really important. We need the tools early. We need to be brought in early, what's coming. And even if we don't have them, like Terry said, we need to know they're coming. We need to know this line X, whatever you're bringing in, is coming so that we can talk about that or have a brochure on it or have something. And have a reason to go in again, which you want us to do, repeatedly see distributors, to go in and have something to talk about.
Agreed.
Okay, respect for the work we do. This is really, it's honesty, respect, fairness, accountability. It does feel often within our own suppliers that we are the enemy. You know, we come back with news from the field, and it's not welcomed, but what we should do with problems. It's, it's negative. There they go again. No, wait. I'm your ears, and I want to be respected for the job that we're doing. And so if you're doing that, we're communicating better and able to serve the distributor better together as a team. What I want from distributors. Neil. I want you to value my time and expertise also. For the things that we can bring to the table, which is, you talked about it yourself, product knowledge, idea generation, negotiation, problem solving. Those are the things that we work for, that we're hired for, and that we're good at. I don't want to be a dusting and delivery service, period.
I guess my position is I'll value your time when you value mine.
Deal.
Because I think consistently, and again, I'm just speaking the truth because fortunately I work for myself and can't be fired.
Oh, me too.
The reality is that the reps within companies and the drive-bys, just in the neighborhood, just dropping by, I got nothing better to do. I'm sorry, I was just hoping you'd come by. That doesn't fly with me. No, it doesn't. It really upsets me, and I can tell you firsthand, and I saw some heads, and I'm not going to name names, they're like, if this is all you have to do, I have work to do. So you need to have a purpose and a mission every time you come in my office, because if you bring no value, you won't be treated with respect.
Part of the problem that comes with that is now between the distributor and the supplier, which I didn't realize was going to happen, is the bane of existence of supplier reps is the call report. So it's not the quality of the call and what we're getting out of it. I could go on one call and be in 9 programs, have 16 spec samples, or I could drop catalogs and bring coffee to 14 people because you want me to see 14 people a week. So suppliers and multi-line reps need to have that real conversation, honest conversation about what's important, and then our distributor will not feel like that. They'll feel respected because we've already talked about it and where to go, where we should spend our time.
And to be fair, there's many that do it well.
There are.
I'm not going across the board, but when you get into that environment where certain people that drive a certain road because I know at 4 o'clock and it happens to be on their way home, that's the call I'm getting. That's not cool. I'm not good with that.
Trusting a client with trusting me, the multi-line rep with your client information. Neil already addressed this. It's true. I'm going to give the Reaction example. He's already my friend. I don't need to, be a better friend of him. Reaction was spectacular at this. We did have all of the information. I could, way ahead of time, get full spec samples in the colors they wanted, brand new products that we've shipped in because I knew what was coming. And consequently, my suppliers did superbly well with them. But it took Neil to have the trust to give me all of his client information, the names, the dates, the programs, the size. Yeah. So that worked. And am I saying every single rep in the world is trustworthy? No. Am I saying, of course not, but we're talking overall here. So you say 75, 80% of people, you will choose in your businesses who you will trust with information. And it matters to multi-line reps serving the distributor well.
You know what? It's a really sensitive topic, and I know a lot of people in this room, distributor-wise, that are good friends, that I've had this conversation with countless times, and it said, I would not give so-and-so anything. And it has to self-police, because as a distributor at the time, and we talked about this the other day, and we were at the top of the food chain, I got fed a lot of stuff I shouldn't have been fed. That's wrong.
Yep.
So if anybody doesn't think it happens, it happens. It happens. So that's self-policing. And if you are in this room and you think sharing program information with other distributors is good game, not so much. I'm telling you, I'm not even going to look up because there's people I know, because I'm passionate about it, said I come in, when so-and-so comes in, I turn the papers on my desk over. We had one at Reaction, or Ackley, whatever we were called at the time, we put out a policy that this person was not allowed to wander the halls, for the simple reason that he wasn't trustworthy. And he would go down the hall to his friends. So I personally, I loved you. You know it. I worked with you guys. It was great because I trusted you. But you can't demand it. You got to earn it. And as soon as that talk goes on, and it does go on, and it goes on today, and I'm not going to put my finger on anybody because it's not fair, but I'll tell you, that confidential information, that's my livelihood. That's my customers. That's what puts gas in my car.
Suppliers, I hope you're hearing in hiring people, in hiring reps, what you should be looking for in a rep in terms of who you want on the road representing your lines. That's, that was speaking to that nicely. Oh, at 10 PKs, please do not make me come in and drag my stuff with nobody opening the doors and helping me in and setting me up and pushing me aside so they can get to their own samples that aren't mine in the showroom, and you got 20 reps and 2 show up. And actually the 2 that show up, let me tell you, they're on their phones, they're not taking any notes, they're not asking questions, and they don't want spec samples. Okay.
Well.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, he's going to rebut for sure.
I just want you to come to the PKs.
I don't have a problem coming to a PK. I have a problem with PKs that are the same, that are consistently catalog flippers that want to flip pages and bring no value. If it is that I'm going to tick off the box that says, today I did Genumark, today I did Staples, today, I'm done with you. So you can't, and I will tell this story, and I won't go into it deep. Our rule used to be, if you wanted to come in, you'd send an email. And the email I would send out to the sales team. If the sales team 50% didn't want to see you, you didn't get in. Here's the problem. It's not my fault. If you can't get anyone that wants to see you, why should they waste their time? So value, value, value. You bring it, I'll bring my, if you build it, I will come.
Yep. And if I bring lunch, you will come. Because that don't make me happy. Because I was thinking about this. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know why everybody's laughing quite so hard. I didn't even say it yet.
Oh, everybody knows it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming.
We all know what lunch and learn is. How it is abusive. I come, I carry my bags, I bang through the doors, nobody helps me. I've got the pizza that's all ugly. And then they don't come and they're on their phones. But, wait a minute, I have an idea. How about I come through the doors, people are welcoming, somebody helps me, you've got somebody to greet me, you pay for the 25 people of your own staff and only pay for 1 extra piece of pizza for me.
Now that's crazy.
I have an idea. What do you think of that? Who said I like it?
I do.
Ha!
You know what? I will say, because the lunch and learn topic is a hot one, and it doesn't matter on what side of the fence you sit, it is a hot one. I personally, and anyone who called on me, never did it. I never did. So I'm not saying.
We're speaking for everybody.
No, I get it. I get it, but I will say, nothing's free. I see people go out and it's getting harder with the different cultures, and I can't bring in this and I can't bring in that. I got to bring this kind of food and I got to bring that. I think personally, and I will say this, if that is the only reason you let these people in, and I heard one last night at a dinner and somebody said, you want the 20-minute spot or you want the hour spot? Because the hour spot has lunch with it. I heard it at dinner last night, and it was the guys on the street, and I was like, seriously. And
but it's the new industry pay to play, and again, there are reps who don't mind bringing lunch. There actually
there's
are.
nothing wrong with
there are. Factory reps mind a little less because usually the suppliers pay for that. The supplier, maybe not so much.
But I would also say, but I would also say, to be fair, there are some distributors in this room, and I can't name them because everybody knows they do barbecues for their staff. For the suppliers, they have great barbecues.
Absolutely.
There's people. I know another major distributor's got a supplier night tomorrow night somewhere.
Yep.
Somebody in Vegas took a bunch of suppliers too.
Never.
I know. So a distributor in Vegas took a bunch to the hockey game. So. There's a balance here, folks.
There is, and I have to tell the quick story when I was at Brand Alliance, because part of what I was trying to do was bring in this culture. And I went across the country and talked to all the reps, both the multi-line reps, the factory reps, and the Brand Alliance reps, about lunch and learns, because I had actually stronger feelings than she does about it, if you can imagine. And I went talking to them, and I don't know if you guys, and I'm going to mention him by name because he's such an amazing man, Pete Kamek. And he was sitting there in this meeting, and I'm saying, this is what lunch and learns really feel like on the other side. It's $400, $300 because you have 20 people, you have a vegan, a vegetarian, somebody needs kosher. No, and this is true, and I'm trying to juggle all this food in with all my stuff, and I put it down, you got greasy food, greasy hands touching my samples, and everybody's got a mouthful, and I'm thinking, when did we get like this? And Pete Kamek stood up, the guy looked like he was literally in tears, he goes, oh my gosh, I never thought about it from the rep's perspective. Never. He said, it didn't even occur to me how much work that was or money or whatever. And ever since they abolished, I think they're back now, sorry, but they abolished lunch and learns right after that across the country at Brand Alliance. And that particular office had a rep appreciation barbecue every year since. And that's just a matter of perception. He just said, wow, just something they did. It's how it always went. And he never thought past that circle. So I just think that's an important story.
And that's why we're being intentional about these words, about this
being
stuff,
intentional,
being aware of what you do and how it affects the other people in line.
And the only thing, and again, I don't know who I'm supporting on this one, is if you are a supplier, or sorry, a distributor who's going to have lunch and learn brought in, I think you owe it to the folks bringing in the lunch to have your people at the table. The people that come in and take your pizza and say, I don't have time and leave, nah, that's not cool. That's unacceptable. So you can't make it, I get it. You don't want to participate, I get it. But don't come in and eat the food. That's just wrong. And the fact that people are talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, the other point that Terry made, it's not that reps don't want to do that. You know, you can bring bagels, you can bring lunch. It's to get in the door is the issue. It has nothing to do with the food or even the cost.
It's the demand.
It's the demand, the expectation, and the totem pole problem that we're discussing. Last, you know, we want to be recognized as partners in your business on all levels, bringing us in, working together. And some unspoken things that I just want to say that didn't come on the
Surveys.
On the surveys. 3 is from a rep's perspective. I mentioned it to Neil before, dusting and delivery service. I'm telling you, it doesn't feel good, and it doesn't even grow your business. So that's a problem in our industry of the way we're treating people.
And I think, how many of you raise your hand who doesn't know what she means by that? That's unfortunate that only 3 of you don't. But it is calling in a multi-line rep to clean your showroom, to come in, take the samples out, dust the shelves, get it all clean, and put it all back up again. It's like,
on a whim, at you know, drive 2.5 hours.
could you come tomorrow, 2 hours from
when we're really trying to work on each other's value? That's sort of
How many of us distributors are walking around now saying, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Can I call it up? I wrote that. Don't do that. Don't be getting any bad ideas, guys.
Great.
Oh my gosh, I just realized we're filling you up with bad ideas.
The other unspoken rule, I'm going to say it out loud, is there has been a feeling in this industry that reps should not be making the money that distributors make. And it's talked about behind closed doors and all kinds of things, what kind of cars we should drive, what kind of clothes we should wear. Where did that rep take a vacation? Did you? They went to the Cayman. There's a feeling that we should not, as hard as we work, earn the money that distributors make. Again, along the same line, you know, respecting value in each other, whatever. Do your jobs, let us work together and not judge on who's making more money than whom. And the last is sometimes, well, this is with everybody, we talked about this when we were doing this presentation, requests feel like demands. We have to stop in this industry requesting things that aren't actual requests. They are demands. And we speak of them as demands and we pass the crown around and it's just not working. For anyone, actually.
And that just goes to what I'm going to say. It's so much of it is not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not what you ask, it's how you ask it or demand it. So in front of you, by the way, is a package of puzzle pieces, and Ariel gave those to us for you. And they are the puzzle pieces of this industry. It's a puzzle where all these things need to fit. And those pieces, one side says Ariel, because they were smart, and the other side, just saying, I didn't ask for that.
We're in the promotional
products.
And the other side is these words. And what I'm hoping, these are all stress relievers, but they all fit together, and that you'll take a look at that when you get back to your office and kind of pull them around. And when you're talking to somebody, you might think a little bit more about how you're going to make your next request. So loyal, you know, choose your partners well and treat them like family. We asked a couple of people, do you treat your partners in this business anything like your family or friends? And people are going, no. Why not? Why not? Why would you not treat people the same with the amount of respect and loyalty that you do? Respectful. It is not so much what you say, how you say it. Please remember that. Just little things like how you write an email. Did you say please? Did you say thank you? I mean, these are so small and it takes an extra second, but my gosh, it makes a big difference on the receiving end. Fairness. I'm going to say it again. Ask only for what you need and not what you can get. And honesty and trust. Well, I mean, that's the essential crux of all this. All this talk about what we will talk to each other about, what we're willing to say to one another, how, you know, where we can be honest and tell people how we really feel about what's happening. We're not doing that as well as we should today, and that's important. So all of these are the foundation of a great corporate culture, which is what we're trying to help everyone build here.
So everything that we've talked about did come from you, and we're going to get into groups and talk about it, but I really want you to focus for a second on your own culture. Again, you have one, whether you meant to have one or not, whether it's good or not, you have one in your company. And it's about why you're doing this and how things get done. So I want you to ask yourself the questions. Do you work honestly? Do you work honestly with your people inside? You tell them, and your reps and your distributors, if you're a supplier, whoever you are. Are you fair? Are you fair in your dealings? What Terry keeps saying, ask only for what you need. Do you treat people with respect, period? Not where they are in the hierarchy. Do you treat people with respect? Do you hold yourselves accountable? Really easy to hold someone else accountable to what they've said they will do, but do you hold yourself accountable to what you said, or at least what your values are? And are you loyal both inside and outside of your walls? So inside your company that creates your corporate culture, and then the industry culture that we create just by being who we are. So that nets out into how it is in your companies. So it doesn't just happen. You can't point a finger to fix the industry culture. The only way we're going to fix an industry culture that we've all realized has a problem, because we got the surveys from you, is to fix our own culture in our own companies and have it go out from there. It's the only way to do it. It's intentional, and it needs to be consistently communicated to those inside. What is your culture? Is it intentional? Is it good? Is it inviting? And is it kind? So those are questions we're just asking you to ask.
And then the communication of our value to each other and our appreciation. I mean, this is my whole thing about life, is being appreciative and being filled with gratitude. That's how I live, that's how I work, and I think it's of great importance in all aspects of life. What we've learned here through all this so far is that there is a disconnect. There's a disconnect as to what we see our roles as and what other people think we should be doing. That's a big disconnect. So we need to take a look at that and say, okay, this is what somebody wants from me, and I'm not actually doing that, but this is what I think they want from me. So all of that has to be looked at. Also, this questionable value that we place or don't place on people. How, like that. I mean, this. I'll give you back the rep. You give me 5%, right? That's a value judgment on a human being. Do we do that? Do we absolutely value or devalue people based on what they give to us? It's an understanding of what we could all do together, that team, that group, that three, serving that end client, but it's how we do that in between. And we need to build the trust and give the loyalty and earn the trust. That's a big one. We have to earn trust and earn respect, that's for sure. We don't have to do it, but then you can also treat people, as Danielle said, you can treat people respectfully whether you respect them or you don't. True. You can still, that comes from you, right? That's on you. So there's lots of ways to look at this. Here's what I'm going to say. What I would like out of this whole story. I would like us all to make a declaration of war. War meaning welcome, appreciation, and respect of all of us in the business. And how easy is that? Really easy. A supplier commenting to a rep on a good order, a good week, a good month. Christmas gifts, many suppliers give gifts to their distributor, but not to their reps, and vice versa. People are hand-picking who they're gifting based on what? The value, probably, or the return on investment, maybe. I had a supplier for years when I was a multi-line rep who called me every month when I had a good month and my commission was high to tell me how excited he was to be writing that check. Now, I say I had a supplier do that because that's pretty much what I had, one. But I'm saying that whole thing, for me, that call was thrilling, right? I mean, it was also his level of appreciation for my work, on top of the fact that I was going to make some more money. For a distributor to a supplier, service awards and thank you notes and calls and gifts and thank you gifts and lunches and the appreciation events. It's amazing what they can do. Suppliers to distributors, and then we do more of that than any, right? So there's awards and there's events and vouchers, but there's lots of other ways to do it. There's just so many other ways to show your appreciation for that person. And a rep to a distributor, just show appreciation for orders, for attendance, for attention. Just say thank you very much for not answering those phones during that presentation, right? It should be a no-brainer and a given, but it isn't. So we need to appreciate what happens to us out on the road, what we're doing, that you're seeing a change in somebody treating you the way you want to be treated. And I'm going to say this is a big one for me. It's salutations in an email. We're all about communications and writing, CYA International, so it hits my heart. But I'm a A personality, you probably couldn't tell that. And I do everything in a rush, and I write an email, and I always go back now and start with dear who. I don't ever start that way because I'm saying, I need this. And then I go back and say, hi, Joe, good morning, happy Friday, whatever it is. And then at the bottom, I go, because I get all my thoughts down, and I think, okay, that's a demand. But if I soften that with, hey, how you doing? How's your weekend? Takes me, 2 seconds more to type that? Well, actually, maybe more. And a thank you at the bottom makes or breaks the whole conversation back and forth. It makes or breaks the conversation when you ask somebody in an email to do something, and they just write back and say, got it, thanks. Like, right, when you send stuff to all your suppliers and then you don't even get an answer, you don't know if they received it, you don't know if they're doing it. Those little tiny words on an email will create new relationships better than you've ever seen. So, now what? Part 2.
So, and I'm going to look at you for timing on this. We're going to have a little break, and then what we're going to do, this was the second half of this, was roundtable discussions. There's a number you were given when you checked in. So I just see one in front, number 6. So you're going to go to table number 6, obviously. There's a designated topic for each table, and you are handpicked for a reason to be at a topic because we were trying to balance them out between distributor, supplier, and multi-line. So if you have a quick break, I don't know what you're...
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Okay, so do you get that? You have to move your table to where you've been asked to go. There are a group of you. Hold on, guys. Hold on.
Hey,
Hold up. Hold up.
One sec.
Hold on, guys.
1 sec.
There are some people, all the non-registered guests, which, by the way, we're thrilled that you came,
Yes.
that don't have a number because we didn't know where to place you. So when everybody sits at their seats, you guys kind of come up here, and we're going to give you a number and tell you where the spot
Sort of like
to
a
go.
boarding pass.
Kind of like that. All right, 15 minutes, we're back, and it's all up to you after this.
Yep.